Good evening and welcome to the ordinary meeting of Council, Wednesday the 28th of January 2026. Start with an acknowledgement of country. Lithgow City Council acknowledges the Wiradjuri elders past and present of the Wiradjuri Nation, the original custodians of the land on which Lithgow communities reside. The Council also extends our respects to our neighbouring nations. Declaration of webcasting. I inform all those in attendance at this meeting that the meeting is being webcast and that those in attendance should refrain from making any defamatory statements concerning any person, councillor or employee, and refrain from discussing those matters subject to closed council proceedings as indicated in clause 14.1 of the Code of Meeting Practice. Public attendance in accordance with the mandatory requirements of the New South Wales Local Government Code of Meeting Practice, clause 1520. Members of the public attending a meeting of council A, must remain silent during the meeting unless invited by the chairperson to speak. B, must not bring flags, signs or protest symbols to the meeting, and C, must not disrupt the meeting. I'll hand over to Director Browning for the council meeting emergency procedures.
In the case of an emergency, please follow the emergency warden's instructions, who will be identified by coloured helmets and fluorescent council vests. Wardens will determine if an evacuation is required and the appropriate exit path. In the event of a fire, do not use the lift. If you require personal assistance in an evacuation, please advise a warden. In the event of an evacuation, no one is to re-enter the building until advised by the Chief Warden.
Thank you. I note all councillors are present. Do we have any declarations of interest?
Thank you, Mayor. I've got one in regards to, I think it's 2.2 in regards to the Finance Committee meeting minutes in regards to Clarence Centennial Colliery, Centennial and Springvale Colliery. I have a non-pecuniary interest. I have a member of the family that works for Centennial Coal, so I'll be declaring a non-pecuniary interest and I'll be leaving the chambers.
Thank you, Councillor Tysos. Councillor Statham?
Yes, I'll be declaring a non-significant, less than significant for item 1.8, Sunny Corner Road. My home is on Sunny Corner Road. I'll be staying in the chambers. I won't be voting.
Thank you, Councillor Statham. Councillor Frederick?
I'll be doing a non-pecuniary for 2.2. I have two families employed by Centennial Coal, family members employed by Centennial Coal, so I'll be leaving chambers.
Thank you, Councillor Fredericks. Any further? Councillor Smith?
Yes, unfortunately, I'm in the same boat. I've got a couple of weeks there as well, so I'll have to be a non-pecuniary interest as well.
So which item is that? Sorry, just for the minute.
2.2.
2.2. Thank you, Councillor Smith. Any further? No? All right. Thank you, councillors. Confirmation of minutes. I've got confirmation of minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held the 1st of December and reconvened on the 10th of December. Can I have someone move those? Councillor Fredericks, can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second them.
Thank you, Councillor Statham. Is there any opposition to that? I'll consider that carried. Thank you.
Mayor, I have a procedural motion, if I may.
Yes, please.
Subsequent business paper has 3 items for the public session, 1.1 to 1.3. Can we deal with them immediately after 1.10 and refer to them as 1.11 through to 1.13?
Sure. So you're moving that way?
Yes.
Is there any opposition to that? No, that's carried. Thank you.
Mayor Common, I've got a procedural motion as well, relates to Councillor Ring's proposition. I'm just asking that 1.9's moved in front of that group, and just to explain very quickly.
Where are you moving to? Sorry, Councillor.
In front of items. Yep. Just as what I'll get them for you. Sorry. My apologies. Relating to all the tenders, so starting from 1.7.
So you're moving 1.9
in front of 1.7 and 1.8, and the items within the subsequent business paper that relate to road tenders.
So you're moving that way?
Yes, and just the explanation, 1.9 explains the presence of the General Manager of Civil and Disaster Recovery at Shepherd Services on the tender panels and explains the process that's occurred. So it just gives some background in front of our consideration of those tenders. I just think the sequencing of the report makes better sense for the councillors, as it'll inform why this private sector third party is on the tender panels, rather than discuss it at each point and then get to the business item that tells why or explains why the person's there.
So you're moving that way, Councillor Marnie. Is there any opposition to that procedural motion? No, I consider that carried. So now we'll move items by exception. There was a list sent out. I'm happy to read it out, and then if you don't want these particular ones to be moved by exception, let me know. I've got 1.1, 1.3. No. Okay, so we'll just 1.1. Then I have 2.1. Then I have 2.3, 2.4, and 2.5.
Excuse me, Mayor, which one did Councillor Tyson wish to speak to?
1.3.
1.3.
I'm happy to include 2.2 as well, which is the Finance Committee meeting minutes, considering there's a number of those with issues and related to that. If anybody doesn't want to speak to that, then I can include that too.
Excuse me, Mayor Coleman, if we do this all the time, is there any reason to even put them in the agenda? You could send them out via email of the ones that we're going to discuss, and people can come back to that particular item, because we seem to not have enough notice. I don't think we've got enough notice to read and catch up on. I think we should be either speaking about them or given them so that we can speak about them. They go to executive, and if they need to be discussed at council, the people have got them, they can come back and say, well, I want to speak to this and this.
An email did go out, Councillor Statham, requesting from Trinity whether to move them by exception or not. It was sent out today.
But
this
there
morning.
seems to be more and more and more, whereas years ago we had none.
Well, an email was sent this morning asking councillors if they objected. Nothing was come back. So if there is something you wish to speak to, then you can let me know here and now, and you can speak to it.
Mayor, could I just indicate that even though I've declared an interest in 2.2 and a couple of others have as well, I think that was the 8th of December. I think that the councillors need to maybe ask questions as to where it's all at in regards to what that is in that report.
Yeah, look,
I'm a bit concerned that you're just going to not look at it, and I think
I'm glad that you raised that. I actually have a question, but I was just putting that out as an option, but I'm happy to leave it in.
Yeah, I think 2.2 does need to be discussed, even though there's 3 of us that have to walk out. It does need to be raised. The community deserves transparency in regards to that one.
Happy to do so. Have no issues with that. I was just flagging it, see is that an option? It's about options. So far I've got 1.1, 2.1, 2.3, 2.4 and 2.5. Can I have someone move those, please? Councillor Ring and Councillor Goodwin. If there's no opposition to those, that's been carried by exception. Thank you, which means that we'll move to 1.2, which is National General Assembly for this year. Call for motions.
I'd like to move the recommendation with an additional point, if I may.
Do you have a seconder?
I think I should probably...
Councillor Marnie seconding.
Okay.
So Councillor Ring.
Additional point 4. Trinity has a copy of this. That the following notice of motion is submitted for consideration at the National General Assembly 2026. that the National Assembly call on the federal government to retain 5-minute flood warnings rather than the 15-minute interval being proposed by the Bureau of Meteorology, and if required, source a different computer software solution. I do appreciate Councillor Fredericks bringing this issue to our attention. We need to get it raised at the National Assembly. The date for submissions to National Assembly for nominations is 27th of February. Our next council meeting is the 24th, and I think it's an opportune time to include this. I think it's fairly important. I think if we, any other comments I'll make to the relevant notice of motion.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Councillor Marty, are you okay with point 4? Yep. Are you happy to speak to that now, Councillor Marty? You have seconded.
I'll turn the mic on, and the answer was yes. I'm happy to have that point 4, and no, I'm happy to leave it at.
So you don't. Okay. Is there any further discussion in regards to this? No. Okay. Well, I'll put that to you. All those in favour? All those against? Declare that carried. We're up to item 1.3, Council Resolution Action Register. I have a recommendation in front of me. Thank you, Councillor Tysus. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ring. Okay, thank you. Councillor Tysus?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to bring to the Councillor's attention 4.2 as a notice of motion in regards to 4 of the issues that have been that are in the action register. I note when I put this notice of motion in, it indicates that this is a result of the last quarter in regards to what the General Manager's actions were, and that very little had been done in regards to the 4 motions that I put up before the Council. I just wanted to move the recommendation and move a procedural motion that we bring forward at 4.2 because it directly relates to all the issues, and that directly relate out of this report, just to get it done tonight. Thank you.
So you're moving a procedural motion for 4.2, the notice of motion.
Be brought forward after this. After this goes through, so that I can move that recommendation in 4.2.
All right, we'll have to put it to the Council. Councillor Tyson. So I've got a procedural motion that 4.2 on page 54 is brought forward by Councillor Tyson straight after this. So I'll put that to you. All those in favour? All those against? Declare that carried. Okay. Yeah, we'll come back to it in a minute. But now we've actually got 1.3 in front of me. Is there any further
As
debate?
a seconder, could I speak?
Yes.
Thank you. On page 10 of 57, it states, resolutions relating to land transfers, purchase or sale can take up to 2 to 5 years to be completed. Completion of some actions have needed to be prioritised due to competing priorities, staff turnover and delays in recruiting for vacant key staff positions. I move to have this register established so we can keep track of where they're up to. Just because councillors put up notices of motion and resolutions get carried does not mean they're going to be enacted on the next day. We set a community program for 4 years. It's based on what the community wants, on their needs. We have long-term financial planning, and our decisions have to reflect that. So it's just a long-term issue. We have to deal with the realities of the constraints which we all work under. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Any further debate on 1.3? Yep. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? Declare that carried. We go down to 4.2. Councillor Tyson.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the recommendation that Council take no further action on the trial of honorary young mayors, music in the community program, the rule changes to the Mayoral Relief Fund, and the trial of mayoral ambassadors. I'll move that recommendation.
Do you have a seconder, Councillor Tyson? Councillor Fredericks is seconding that. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor?
Only, Mayor, in regards to what I've already outlined in the report. This is probably not going to happen in this coming year, so I think it's only appropriate that the Council take the time to remove the 4 programs, and allow the council administration to do other things.
Thank you, Councillor Tysus. Councillor Fredericks?
Well, it's pretty self-explanatory. One of them was a resolution back on the 28th of October 2024. So it's been over a year. So, I mean, there's some cost-saving measures by removing some of these. We need to start looking at cost-saving measures. I don't have an issue with having any of these removed from the thing on the outstanding community programs, things like that. It's not an issue. It's going to save a little bit of money that we probably wouldn't have had to spend anyway. So,
Thank you, Councillor Fredericks. Any further debate on this item?
I have a question for you too, Councillor Tysus, if I may.
Councillor Ring?
Given the recommendation, given the management context, does he accept that council resolutions are constrained by resourcing? Or does he stand by his public comment on Facebook that council neither has the heart, soul, or community spirit to bring each program to fruition?
The second, what I said on Facebook, exactly.
Thank you.
Is there any further debate on this matter? I'll put the motion to you. All those in favour? All those against? Declare that carried. We now move back to 1.4, which is the investment report November 2025. We have a recommendation here. What's the will of the council?
Yeah, I'll move that one.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Marnie, are you seconding it? Yeah. Councillor Goodwin?
Thank you, Mayor Coleman. The recommendation is for it to be noted. I'm happy with the recommendation.
Councillor Marnie?
Turn the mic on, sorry. I'll just note the responsible accounting officer's comments on restricted reserves that in this period, council had insufficient cash and investment at the 30th of November 2025 to fund 45.3 of externally restricted reserves and 6.9 of internally restricted reserves, and internal borrowing of 1.3 from the internally restricted reserves was required for the period, and this relates to the late payment of rates. Can I just ask a question through you, Mayor, to Mrs. Browning? Can you explain for the group and also for the public just the rules surrounding externally restricted reserves and internally restricted reserves and what they're used for, just so we understand why there's large cash or reserves sitting there, why they're sitting there and they're not used for general operational?
Director Browning?
Through you, Mayor Coleman. So with externally restricted reserves, they're required by legislation to be any money collected for that purpose to be retained in what's called a reserve, and that money gets set aside for the purpose of expending works and programs on those services. So, for example, domestic waste, we charge domestic waste services to provide collection of domestic waste, so your curbside collection. So we can only use it for the purposes that's identified for as mandated by legislation. Internally restricted reserves are those cash where council's gone forward. So an example is the SRV program. We've collected additional income to produce programs that were outlined in the SRV application. And another one is the commercial waste reserve. It's not required for legislation, but council's already resolved that money collected in terms of those that are taken through gate takings and through commercial waste collection are spent for those purposes in accordance with the plan. As you will identify, you see in both the in November investment report and December investment report that we are quite significantly overdrawn in terms of our unrestricted cash, which is money that's not set aside for a specific purpose. And while we have internally restricted reserves available there, you can see there's not an awful lot there to cover it. So while we're sort of internally borrowing from those internally restricted reserves at the moment, there's not a lot of wriggle room to continue that practice. So we're taking measures to be able to address that situation.
Thank you. And I'll note and talk to it in the next item, so I don't want to blur the two items, but Some of those internal reserves are ensuring that we can pay leave entitlements. So drawing that down can leave us in a precarious situation when needing to deal with that for staff. But I thought it's useful that we explain some of the terminology that happens in these meetings, because the general public is also listening in, so they have a bit of an understanding of what those two reserves. We're aware that other councils borrowing into or going deep into those reserves can cause themselves significant financial problems. So there needs to be a discipline around that. But thank you for your answer.
Any further commentary? Councillor Statham and Councillor Frederick.
Yes, Mayor Coleman. I'm just a little bit curious looking at all the finance reports and what's being paid out, etc., but I can't find anything to do with the Upper Macquarie County Council weeds controlling the Lithgow local government area. There is a tremendous amount of weeds right through our areas, and I've had lots of complaints, and I'm just wondering how we're situated with that particular.
Sure. Yep. The General Manager will respond for you.
Through you, Mayor, we receive a single annual invoice from Central Tablelands Weeds Authority, or Upper Macquarie County Council as they're otherwise known. So that's usually paid by July or August. I'd have to check, but so we don't receive regular invoicing from them, but they are paid as a rate once a year.
And can I ask, please, what the budget is for the coming year for the Upper Macquarie?
I'll take that on notice and send that to councillors. Either Director Browning or myself will check that.
So the budget, yes, thank you. The budget, the current budget for the following year, and the previous budget for the previous 3 years, if you could please, because I think there's a significant change, and I don't know whether we've been informed of that.
Sure. Just some additional information. There is a base rate amount, which is the majority of the subscription or payment to Central Tablelands Weeds Authority, and there's also a separate amount for roadside weed spraying.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
we'll provide that.
Councillor Fredericks.
Through you, Mayor, to Ms Browning. Of the internal borrowing of the 1.3 million due to late payment of rates, how much of that relates to 2.2?
Director Browning.
At that stage, all of it. As at the November, we were more than overdrawn.
Just a question related to that. Is that the same for December as well?
December's are slightly over, so it's within that $1 million over that balance. Yeah.
Any further commentary, comments? Councillor Goodwin, would you like to write a reply?
No, I just put the motion.
I'll put that to you. All those in favour? All those against, declare that carried. Thank you. We now move to 1.5, investment report December 20.
I'd like to move that with an additional point, if I may.
Absolutely.
Mayor Coleman.
Yeah.
The additional point.
And I need a seconder. Councillor Marnie? Okay.
The additional point is point 4, that the Finance Working Party is briefed monthly to monitor the progress of Council's cash flow. It's basically just to keep us in the loop so we can work on it. Director Browning knows my preference for finance meetings. I prefer them monthly. I appreciate she's under the pump with a number of key positions vacant. But we need to keep our eye on this. And through you, Mayor, I have a question for the administration. If significant rates remain unpaid for the benefit of councillors and the broader community, what is the process for recovery?
Director Browning?
Through you, Mayor Coleman. At the stage, we've started preliminary contingency planning on that basis. So that's reviewing all works and programs at the moment, so looking at the stage of delivery that those programs are at and looking for opportunities where they can be paused. We're also reviewing all requests in terms of purchase orders and requisitions for recruitment. So we're considering those and looking at what stage and the criticality of them. So essentially, we're having to defer works and programs to ensure we don't overspend on those restricted reserves.
If I could, Mayor, I appreciate that, but in terms of recovering
Yep.
the outstanding rates, that's what I'm more concerned about.
Yeah.
I do appreciate the fact administration is being proactive and being financially responsible, but how do we get the rates?
Yeah, so council has a debt management and hardship policy, so we're following that, and we've obviously communicated that with the relevant ratepayers.
No, thank you. I've got nothing further to add.
Councillor Marnie, I understand that you second this.
Yeah, I'll just.
Microphone, if you could. We can't
My
hear you.
apologies. Firstly, I accept the point for, just to reiterate that commentary from the previous report, noting again the need for internal borrowings to meet those challenges of Wealth Council having insufficient cash. I understand we'll talk further to that in 2.2. I do want to note again, just in these reports, the value of putting out there those high value of supplier payments. It gives a clear indication of the type of activities that are occurring that this council is endorsing. I also am very appreciative of the fact that the funding source is clearly identified in those statements. So we understand where external funds, the SRV or general funds, are applied to those activities. So that helps explain that situation for the community when they're asking how individual project components are funded. So I appreciate your work on doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Do we have any further debate on this item? Councillor Fredericks, or questions?
Through you to Miss Browning, just so that way it is completely transparent. From what I heard with the previous report, that 1.3 from November and that 3.3 in December is 2.2.
Director Browning?
Through you, Mayor Coleman, that's the main contributing factor, absolutely. The rest is related to timing in terms of when we receive income for grant-delivered projects.
Thank you, Councillor Fredericks. Thank you, Director Browning. Any further commentary or questions on this item? No? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? Declare that carried. Thank you. We move to 1.6, proposal to enter a licence agreement with LSMR Limited.
I'd like to move a new recommendation for this, if I may.
What would you like to move? And do you have a seconder? Councillor Marnie or Councillor Evangelides? Who's going to move? Which one?
Maybe if I read it, then they can choose.
Decide.
They might not like it.
All right.
That the proposal to enter into a license agreement with LSMR Limited is referred to both the Finance Committee and Planning Work Party for consideration. If either wants to second it, then I'll speak to it.
Councillor
Okay.
Marnie, you're happy to second that? Yeah.
The report that we have fails to address, in my opinion, a number of key issues which we need to have in order to make an informed decision. Given that the growth management strategy is currently underway, is it appropriate to direct staff resources to a non-critical LEP amendment? What consultation has occurred to determine if it's appropriate to reclassify this land? I would assume that the growth management strategy should provide us with an informed position on all council land and what land council could dispose of. I could be wrong on that, but we need to have that broader discussion. What's the financial capacity of LMSR Limited moving forward? Given the connecting rail bridge has been demolished, will the bridge be rebuilt? If not, what are the plans for this organisation moving forward? What security is being proposed for these vehicles to prevent vandalism, graffiti and public access and potential public liability claims? They're my concerns with it, and I think they need to be freshed out and then brought back to council so we can actually make an informed decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reen. Councillor Marnie?
Just to reiterate that point around the bridge, that's a critical bit of infrastructure that gives rail link to the State Mine Museum precinct. If there's, we need to understand the intent to replace that if that is the case. If it's not, we need to be conscious that this may become a bit of enabling infrastructure, the rail corridor, which if we do go down the pathway, and I know there's been a decision of the council previously, so I'm cognizant of that, we just need to be aware that if this transfers into private ownership, that may preclude any future pathway for that rail option at State Mine Museum. I just need to be clear before endorsing this that isn't an unintended outcome. So a third party may have acquire that land which may not permit access through that rail system through Lake Billins and beyond. I'm more comfortable with the lease arrangements which allow us to use it as an enabling infrastructure rather than it end up in one person's hands. I think we've got some other issues with, this is probably one of our most significant heritage sites in the city, and unfortunately we don't have a plan of management that then limits the pathway forward, because we could offer those leases as temporary, short-term or medium-term. I also am concerned that the other part of the rail alignment has moved out of any potential to be in our hands, which is the part that links Bank House to the bridge over Inch Street, the bridge over Inch Street, then into the rest of the rail system. So, given I was part of a party that brought forward the concept of a shared walking track cycleway along Farmers Creek in 2004, we're now 22 years later delivering on it. I just don't want to close the door on potential future options there by permanently transferring that enabling infrastructure out of our hands. So I concur with where Councillor Ring's going, that we need to bring it back in front of the council group to examine and interrogate a little bit more to make sure that we've got best use of that land going forward. And we may in fact have a significant tourism opportunity that we may sell the critical gateway to it. So, and I'm noting the reclassification of it from community land to operational, which under the Local Government Act then provides a pathway to sell it. So I'd just like a little bit more interrogation of this issue before we make a decision.
Thank you, Councillor Money. Any further commentary on this matter? Just for me, I'm not comfortable with an LEP amendment. My understanding is that we're currently going through a process of reviewing that. I just want that clarified. Is that correct, Director Elwood, that we're going through an LEP review?
Mayor, that is correct. We have commenced the process that culminates in an LEP review with the growth management strategy and the engagement of consultancies to develop that. We have community forums for that taking place in February. We have also just recently publicly exhibited a LEP, what's called a housekeeping LEP process that the Department Planning had approved, which identified a range of lands that were being reclassified, plus other aspects of the LEP that they've agreed to change as well. So that process has just also recently been undertaken and publicly exhibited. So those are two processes that are underway.
Thank you. And I'm not comfortable with a section of council land going from community to operational without fully understanding the consequences of that. And if it does go to operational, then I believe that it should go out to market. We need to be looking at this in a holistic matter, and we need to have more discussion on this. So I'll be supporting the recommendation put by Councillor Ring and second by Councillor Money. Is there any further commentary on this matter? And I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? Declare that carried. Thank you. I believe we're now up to 1.9, which Councillor Marty, you brought forward. Would you like to
Yeah, I'd be happy to
move
move
something
that.
here?
Thank you, Mayor.
So you're moving the recommendation or something else?
No, I'm happy to move the recommendation, but I just think it's useful for it to be in front of the other items.
Okay, thank you. And
I'll second that.
you're happy to second that? Thank you, Councillor Statham. Councillor Marty?
Just noting that on page 31, Lithgow Council has had 4.69 of essential public asset reconstruction projects approved over 15 locations. Now, what the administration's seeking is to approve a variation to Shepherd Service Proprietary Limited, who undertook our assessment of our road system, has come back with a very, it's described as sobering, but very compelling report on the state of our roads. Now, the sum to engage them is $475,167. Now, that's roughly 10%, just over 10% of the total project cost. Now, they're then in play for the next three, inclusive of this financial, my understanding, for the 3 financial years. Obviously, that in itself is a concern, even noting the significant expertise they bring to the process. I just also note that in the financial statement, and I'll read this just so I'll put it as a question just for clarification and just to ensure that it's understood. A project variation of $475,160 or $67 over the length of the Shepherd service engagement. This is entirely, I'm paraphrasing, compensated under the Disaster Recovery Fund. This engagement fits with Council's allocation for project management service, noting that one employee within Council, not Council's appointed project managers, are able to claim their time under the program. So if I'm understanding, and I want to be clear that I'm understanding, and essentially it's a project management fee provided to an industry specialist, an external third party, and we can make a claim for that 10% project management costs. Through you, Mayor, to the Director Edgecombe.
Director Edgecombe?
Through you, Mayor Coleman. Thank you, Councillor Marnie. It's a complicated one, but you're correct. Up to 15% of the approved DRFA, the Disaster Recovery Funding Arrangement costs, are eligible for compensation under the program, but there's very specific eligibility requirements around council staff and their time and how they can claim those costs back under the program. For example, I can't claim my time, even though I spend a considerable amount of time on the program, nor can our project managers who are tasked with the delivery of these projects in large part. The only person who can is our Natural Disaster Recovery Coordinator, because he was appointed specifically for the purpose of administering these claims and claiming back funding from the government. So the guidelines are written to encourage councils essentially to contract out these arrangements and to have them delivered externally. It's also easier for us to claim that money back because the invoices are prepared monthly rather than having daily timesheets and the like. So generally preferable to have it run this way, and there's specific provisions for it. So yes, you're correct.
Okay, thank you. I'll conclude. For a small council, under 20,000, and other small regional councils, to carry the level of expertise that's in this private sector workforce is, I would suggest, challenging, yes, perhaps even impossible, for every single small regional council to hold this expertise. I'm hoping what comes out of it is that, and from what I understand and the few things I've seen, it's about building professional capacity, not dependency on a third party. So, and it's something I really think is important. So it's good to see that these people are participating in the tender panels, hopefully some of the support, preparation and interrogation of the tenders as they come in through vendor panel. I should be careful. If I'm making comments, I'm just going to ask you to verify that, just that I haven't done an overreach and then claimed it's something it's not.
Director Edgecombe, you've been invited to comment.
Thank you so much. I just want to reaffirm something that Councillor Marnie said. We're not engaging these people to do work for council, where we have engaged them to do work with council. You're 100% right. It is very difficult for regional councils. The further west you get of Sydney, the harder it gets to retain the expertise that Shepherd Services offer. We've tried to retain it, we've tried to find it, and we've failed many times. So I just want to reinforce the fact that one of the most sound strategies that regional councils can implement to grow their workforce is starting from scratch and building their capability up through the external resourcing like Shepherd. So it is a core part of the program. It's one of the central 3 pillars upon which we've engaged Shepherd, is building capacity and working alongside council.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll conclude there. Thank you.
Councillor Statham?
I believe that Councillor Marnie picked up on a couple of items that I was going to talk about, but I think it's a sound report, and I think Councillor Marnie has said everything that needed to be said.
Thank you, Councillor Statham. Councillor Ring?
For you, Mayor Coleman, to the administration, I have a question. Point 1 of the recommendation, or what will become a resolution, is based on section 55(3)(1), the Local Government Act. Now, it claims that on the basis of the reasoning provided in the report, that an exemption from tendering has been provided under this clause. Specifically, it states that due to extenuating circumstances, remoteness of locality, or the unavailability of competitive or reliable tenderers, satisfactory result would not be achieved by inviting tenders. I don't believe the report clearly articulates why the exemption has been given. And I would like to understand very simply why it has been given, because it's not the location. We're very close to Sydney. So I don't believe it's remoteness. So I'd like to know what the actual justification is.
Director Edgecombe?
Thank you, Mayor Coleman, and thank you, Councillor Ring. Last calendar year, in October, September, Lithgow City Council ran a public and open tender process to engage services of a company like Shepherd, but it was open, it was competitive, to provide the council professional services related to the development of strategy and the implementation of that strategy around the renewal of our road network. Alongside growth of council staff and professional development, there were 2 other key pillars to that project. One was the development of an enduring, an initial 6-year strategy, but also an enduring policy and strategy around asset management that's sound and based on best practice. And the third element, was assistance with the delivery of our programs and building capability and capacity and best practice around project delivery. When we went to open market for that work, we had several companies approach council. All of them were a bit concerned about the scope of the project. They were either able to deliver one, being the strategy associated with the work, or they were able to assist us with delivery. So it was not, we found that it was very uncommon for any company to have expertise in both areas, and Shepherd were able to fit that bill along with a couple of others which were subject to which were outlined in that September report. But also outlined that we tested the market for this project in September 2025. If the council sought tenders for similar work in the past 12 months, and especially if that work is complex or specialised, we can generally be fairly certain that if we go to market for similar work again, that there will be, it's highly unlikely that we'll get new results. So for that reason, we believe that there's no reason to test the market again, and that due to those circumstances and the unavailability of competitive and reliable tenders, that we wouldn't yield a satisfactory result going back to market.
Thank you. So succinctly, you went to tender in September, October. You found only one company who can do it. Okay, that I get. But in future, when we invoke this in a council report or a tender document, can we actually articulate very clearly what the reasons are? And very simply. I'm only a councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Is there any further debate or comments in regards to this recommendation? Nope. Okay, I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Oh, sorry, right, a reply. Sorry, Councillor Marnie. I'll come back to you, Councillor Marnie.
Famous last words. It'll be brief. I appreciate the question that Councillor Ring put there, and it's a very important question Councillor Ring's posed. So, and I thank Mr. Edgecombe again just for responding to that, because it's important that those things are publicly stated, and I agree with Councillor Ring that they need a small insertion into the report which clarifies that pathway. But I'll leave it to that, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. I'll put that to you. All those in favour? All those against, declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. We move on to 1.7, tender evaluation payment. Let me finish it.
You've gone back, sorry, I'll go back.
I'm going to 1.7. Yeah. 1.7, tender evaluations, payment, rehabilitation and sealing and sod walls roads. Sod walls? So 1.7, is that what you want to move, Councillor Tyson? No, right. So 1.7, do I have a mover?
I'll move that.
Thank you, Councillor Statham. Is there a seconder? Councillor Marnie's happy to second that. Councillor Statham?
This is a road that's been on the agenda, I think, for a long time, and there was a suggestion that they take a class action against council. I recommended several people not to go down that track, that our council would eventually come around to the fact that Sodwell's Road is, it was in a pretty bad state like other roads, but we're not the only council in the state that has this problem. I think it'll be a great thing for the people in Sodwells, Hampton and around that area to know that the roads are now on the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Statham. Councillor Marnie?
Just with the new approach to public forum, I'll just make it, and it's relevant to this matter. We had a speaker come in who I think raised a relevant point, Mr. Evans, just in regard to the timing of tenders. So we've got the timing of the tenders, and I don't want to pull this up and repeat it on every single tender, but they overlapped what is often the close down period for major businesses and smaller businesses. Just to ensure that we get maximum coverage and maximum tenders into the process. Appreciate there's some time limits in getting things concluded by the end of the financial year, and there's significant pressures from our community to expedite these processes. But I think if we can be conscious of this, we've got 12 months before this becomes an issue again. But the dates that were quoted and in the address to council were suggesting early to mid-December to early to mid-January, which lots of businesses will shut down from December 15 to January 7 often. So that's the only comment. There's some notes, and I hope that we're building some capacity again from having Mr. Shields on the tender panel. So I'll leave the comment at that. Just I endorse and would reiterate what Councillor Statham has said, and it's great to see some of these projects rolling out into the landscape. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Do I have any further commentary on this topic? No? Councillor Statham, would you like a right of reply?
Oh no, I'm delighted to hear the news, and I'll be looking forward to the finished result.
Thank you, Councillor Statham. I'll put that to you. All those in favour? All those against, declare that carried. Now we move to 1.8, tender evaluation, road patching and resheeting, Portland Sunny Corner Road. Before we go forward, I'll just stop there.
Yeah, I'd like to move it, but I'd like to before someone seconds, I have a couple of questions, if I could, through you to the administration.
I need someone to move and second it first.
Okay, well, someone
So
seconds.
you're moving it. I need a second.
Okay.
Councillor Frederick's got a hand up there. So,
Yep. Okay.
so Councillor Ring, you can now speak to it.
Mr. Evans emailed all councillors about his concerns, and reading the report, it appeared on the surface there were legitimate concerns. I did the math, and with what's been spent, what was tendered, comes to $820,596.65, leaving out of what was the stated budget $903,159.35 cents, whatever, unaccounted for. I forwarded the letter or the email from Mr. Evans to Mr. Edgecombe requesting clarification on it because I was concerned. He did send out, I think it was around midday the day, a little later, an email to all councillors. I'm not sure if all councillors have had an opportunity to actually read that. So I'd ask him to succinctly explain the difference. And then the second question would be through you, Mayor Coleman, to Director Browning, about the timing of the tender. Does it breach our tendering policies? Some companies do close down. I've noticed some businesses are not closing down for extended periods because they've got so much work on, particularly in the construction industry. They just can't afford the downtime. So if I could get those responses, please.
Director Edgecombe.
Thank you, Mayor Coleman, and thank you, Councillor Ring. To put it as succinctly as possible, we are aware of the condition of our network. We've never been as aware of as we are. And we know that there's about $90 million worth of work requiring to be delivered. When the scope of this project was conceived, it was under the assumption that we would have about $16 million per year to dedicate to our roads, and that figure has been revised down to a more reasonable $12 million. So we've had to shrink down and try to make as effective as possible our allocation of funding across the road network and to all of our projects. Initially, this project included 3 kilometres of pavement recycling, but we've had to adjust that scope to try and make it more cost effective and spread out the impact of council's investment. So we've since rescoped that project to include the deep lift and replacement of isolated failed pavement sections to 200 millimetres depth, and then the reseal of the entire 10-kilometre length. So if anyone's looking for an example of what the road will look like once it's finished, if they drive the first 3 kilometres of Magpie Hollow Road, it will look the exact same. They will still have a brand new smooth running surface. They'll have new line marking for 10 kilometres. There'll be new signs purchased and installed where they're damaged or not reflective, and new drainage for the full length as well. So it's a readjustment of scope to spread the council's investment as far as possible, so to make sure we're living within our means and addressing the needs of the network as quickly as possible.
Just one more for you, Mayor, to Mr. Edgecombe, if you could clarify. Will this new scope of works provide a good high standard of road?
Director Edgecombe.
In the immediate short to medium term, absolutely. The initial scope did include pavement recycling, which one can predict might have a longer lifespan. However, like I said, we have a road network that stretches over 900 kilometres and urgent needs all around the LGA. So at some point, we do need to compromise and accept perhaps a possible reduced lifespan so that we can address the dire needs of other roads around the LGA.
Short to medium, roughly in years. I know it's putting you on the spot. We're talking 10, 15 years?
10 to 15 is the average lifespan of a bitumen seal. Depending on weather, you might see 8 to 10 in some areas if the road's well built but gets a lot of water. It's hard to put a number on it because there's several factors that could contribute to the early failure or the prolonged lifespan of a road. But it's impossible to answer that question with finality.
No, thank you. Director Browning, she could advise in relation to council's purchasing policies.
Director Browning.
Through you, Mayor Coleman. 3 weeks is the only constraints in terms of the legislation in terms
Normally with public policy strategies that we put out, we don't put out over the Christmas period. Is there any reason we don't do the same with commercial?
obviously we try and maximise the potential tenderers to submit in. So
Right.
obviously we try and align it to more available timing. But there were some constraints on both sides of the project. So there's we obviously need to move urgently, but also there was a lot of prep work. So it just happened to be how it's come together since the approval of the DRFA funding, which occurred June, the finalisation with the claims. So obviously in terms of prepping and the deflection testing and pavement testing that had occurred, it's just an unfortunate timing in terms of how the project's sequenced. It's something we're looking to improve over time in terms of developing that. We have that six-year roads works program. So that will enable a more coordinated approach and phased implementation in terms of project delivery.
Thank you for that. Look, I think it's we'll still get a good road with this. Obviously, there are extenuating circumstances. As Mr. Edgecombe said, we've got $90 million backlog. If we get 10 to 15 years on this road, that's good. What it will give us an opportunity is to test the standard and quality of work under this new regime. And then we can hold the administration to account. Thank you.
Before I come to you, Councillor Fredericks, there was a few comments that needed to be clarified. Director Edgecombe, can you just,
Director Browning was 100% right. I just wanted to add a bit further information to not justify but explain the cause for the timing of the release of these tenders. Firstly, as Director Browning mentioned, the approvals were given for the DRFA funding in June. We could then commence work. So we've been spent the last 6 months, pavement testing and doing geometric design and the like for each of these projects, which has taken a bit of time, but it makes sure that when we're delivering these projects, that the works on the ground match the needs of the site, which is something that we've not done previously. So it is a whole new regime, as Councillor Ring noted. But the second, the DRFA program expires on the 30th of June 2027. So we have 2 years from the date of award or approval to deliver these projects. We don't just have these roads projects, we also have in the next financial year scheduled 5 major slope rehabilitation projects. So the time is of the essence. We don't have the luxury of being able to wait. So we had to get these tenders out to make sure we deliver these roads projects by 30 June so that we can get cracking with those slope stability projects next financial year.
Councillor Fredericks, all yours? No? Okay. Councillor Smith.
Just to put it in perspective, is this allocation of 728,000 for these sod walls? The Sunny Corner. Is that sort of about the same ratio as what you would have spent on your 3 kilometres in Magpie Hollow? So that's 10 out there, 3 there. I assume I got my figures right.
Director Edgecombe.
That is a fantastic question, and it's the reason why my email was a bit delayed this morning, because I asked the exact same question of my staff and made sure that it was indeed the same ratio. So yes, it's about the same. It's less than what was applied to sod walls because the damage on sod walls is far more difficult and more complex.
So, and then can I ask this question? And that cost factor is the same ratio. I take it. What was the cost of the Magpie Hollow section, the 3 kilometres? 183. Is that correct?
I would need to take that on notice and get the advice to you tomorrow. Like I said, I got the advice this morning.
In the finances there.
Pardon?
It says in the finances 183.
What page, Councillor Smith?
Oh yes, I know what you're referring to. Yes, that's correct.
So anyway, probably the point I'm getting at mainly is that you've mentioned why how it's going to stand up and the quality of the road. It will be interesting. You never mentioned one major factor is increase in traffic, especially on some of these roads.
So
how's it going to stand up when you'd probably treble your traffic?
So, Councillor Smith, are you asking, has this taken in consideration increased traffic?
Yes.
You said over 10 years, so does that also include increased traffic?
Absolutely. Every single one of the roads being delivered this financial year has detailed pavement designs attached to it, which considers traffic in the form of equivalent standard axles over a period of a year. So that is considered, but I'm also in talks with Sean and the assets team and the infrastructure team to start factoring in future large-scale development across our LGA so that we're starting to plan for the likely construction traffic and support traffic required for those developments in the future. For example, along Magpie Hollow Road and the like.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Goodwin.
That's okay. Just a question to Mr. Edgecombe through you, Matt.
Yeah.
In the previous public forum, the member of the public, Mr. Evans, did ask a question about the $91,000 that had been previously spent on the road. Can you just elaborate on what that $91,000 was?
Director Edgecombe.
Thank you, Mayor Coleman. So the $91,000 has been spent on a few different things. So the first is deflection testing through, I won't go into the technical aspect of it, but we dropped weights on the road, measured deflection bowls to measure the integrity of the pavement, make sure that it was sound and could support a new seal, and the traffic that Councillor Smith noted. Second, we did some isolated core testing in each lane to make sure that the findings from the deflection testing were accurate and that the underlying pavement was sound and that our intervention methodology was correct. Third, we've also done some geometric design work to make sure that the road alignment itself is reasonable, and any minor corrections that need to be made in terms of super elevation and the camber of the road, so that when people are manoeuvring around curves at 100 kilometres an hour, that they're as safe as possible, and that the shape of the road assists motorists in staying on the road. So all of those works have been done. There's also been staff time in preparing the tenders and engaging with Transport for New South Wales and the DRFA program and the like. So all of those factors have gone into that.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin and Director Edgecombe. Is there any further comments, questions, right or reply? Oh, Councillor Marnie.
Just briefly, just picking up on the speaker was saying that they saw 14 years of no significant repairs. We're going back to them saying that we're looking at a 10 to 15 year life cycle of the current proposal. So just noting that there needs to be articulated into the community. There might be a level of frustration that they've got a 25-year cycle of no significant repairs, a pragmatic block of repairs to get a medium-term life cycle out of it. So they may be looking at 25 years before a renewal. And I'm in no way a road engineer, so I don't want to bring forward any pretense that I understand more than I do. I think we need to keep consistent on the messaging around the fact that we now have a full understanding of the condition of our road system. There's plenty of anecdotal and well-held views within the community about the condition of the roads they experience. But my understanding is we've taken this back to a pragmatic level of repair in order to be able to get into that. Now, I've got a figure in my head sitting well over 50% of failed and failing roads, and a figure somewhere around 90 million that we didn't really have visibility of a couple of years ago. So there is going to be a level of pragmatism around this. So I just think that needs to be articulated into the community. I felt coming out of this first public forum format, I would suggest to the General Manager, for you, Mayor, it may be advantageous to have all directors sit through the public forum, because we may get presentations that are very compelling and they come from people who put a lot of thought into what they're saying. As councillors, we've got to look at how we develop our decision on issues. So the report's important. External expertise, our own personal research is important. So if we find ourselves, because we've made a rule, you can't come and talk at public forum unless you're going to talk to what's in this paper. If somebody talks to it and we're unable to, I suppose that's what the minister's looking for, is this public questioning. So I'm happy to participate, but it helps also the staff to understand the frame that the question was posed in. So I'll leave it at that. It's just a comment on. I'm not asking for why people were here or weren't here. I'm just making a comment. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. I'll come back to Councillor Ring as right of reply.
Just put it.
Okay, I'll put that. All those in favour? All those against? Declare that carried. Thank you. We now move to 1.10.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to move a recommendation different to what's in the book.
Yep, sure. So 1.10 is
I've
annual
provided
report.
I've provided that to the bench up there, so I'll read it out. That similar to previous Lithgow City Council Resolution 24-266, 1. Council note the attached draft 2024-25 annual report for endorsement, and that 2. The General Manager include in the final published 24-25 annual report all financial information with respect to Council Resolution 21-119, a property lease with the Lithgow Golf Club Limited, as the Council did in its previous 23-24 annual report.
Seconder? You're going to second? Okay.
I'll second that.
So you're seconding Councillor Tyson's motion that's in front of you? Yep.
No, I'm not.
You're happy to support that? Okay, so Councillor Tyson?
Thank you, Mayor. This was raised when we first got on council and successful in putting it in. I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was the motion was unanimous that we do publish it. It was published with all the information there. I think it's in respect of our financial governance. I think it's appropriate that, given the amount of spending that I understand is there, and some we're talking about public accountability. Councillor Marnie was talking about telling the public what's going on. I think it's appropriate that we repeat exactly what we put in there last time, obviously with whatever the figures were for the last 24-25 financial year.
Thank you, Councillor Tyson. Councillor Ring?
Look, I don't mind it being as a draft. I know we're late with it. I do have 25 plus questions in relation to items in it. I'm happy to go through them now. The staff do have those, or they can be put. The amendments can be made before it comes back to council. I'm happy either way. I'm happy to sit here and ask 25 questions. Or
You're the councillor, Councillor Ring. What do you want to do?
Look, there's just 2 that I'd like to ask now. The rest I'll ask for the management to actually deal with. Just so we're not here all night.
That's up to you.
Page 16. What action has been undertaken to recoup the 7.2 million rejected by DRFA?
Director Browning? Who's answering that? Is that your question? Yep.
Through you, Mayor Coleman. So there has been some advocacy undertaken, and initial responses weren't favourable. So we're prepared a timeline, and we are escalating that advocacy.
Thank you. The second question is, what state and federal grants were discontinued, and was the risk of discontinuation assessed as part of the rate review process for the SRV?
Director Browning, is that for you? Or is that for Director Edgecombe? Okay. And, okay, so we've got Director Edgecombe and then the General Manager. Okay, so Director Edgecombe.
Thank you, Mayor Coleman. So in the last few years, I'm going back 10 years now, but in the last few, we've lost the Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Program, which was about $1.5 million a year. There was the Fixing Local Roads and Fixing Country Roads program that regional councils were previously able to take advantage of. That was a couple of $1 million a year as well. The Resources for Regions program was about $4.5 million, and that was shared often between Matt's department and my own, being the Water and Sewer team and the Transport Assets team. And there was also the Fixing Country Bridges program, which council's not able to take advantage of now because we've got no timber bridges left. And the Emergency Road Repair Fund, which was finalised last financial year as well. So all in all, there's about $7.5 million worth of grants that were provided to council on a yearly basis that no longer exist.
Was the risk of them being lost assessed during the SRV documentation process? Or the rating structure review?
I'll ask General Manager to step in there.
Through you, Mayor. Yes, it definitely was. As part of the preparation of the long-term financial plan, we linked only certain grants that we had reasonable assurance of, capital grants that is, that we had reasonable assurance of receiving, such as Roads to Recovery, which is a multi-year program that is ongoing. From memory, the capital grants we allowed for only about $2.5 million. With DRFA in the last couple of years, we've been receiving about $16 million in capital grants. So we kept it to a very conservative estimate for the long-term financial plan that was part of the SRV application.
Thank you for that. I'll ask a couple of questions. On page 84, Arts Out West is listed again in financial assistance grants. Arts Out West is a fee for service. Could you please explain why it's actually put there? I don't know, but I'd like it explained.
General Manager?
Through you, Mayor. So that's an historic categorisation. It can certainly be moved to a project, as we call it, of its own in future.
Thank you for that. Most of my other questions that I sent through had to do with a lack of information or KPIs on certain areas where I believe some staff probably didn't have time or missed it. Are those issues going to be dealt with if this comes back as a draft, comes back as a final?
General Manager?
Can I just make a clarification there before you start? What we've got tonight is the draft. This is meant to be published, and all I'm suggesting is before it's meant to be published after tonight, I think, is the go. So if you want to change anything, or
yeah, that's what I'm just asking before we get changed. I don't want to do it all here. Tell you,
yeah,
sorry,
no,
Mayor.
It can't come back. Is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No,
Did you have any further questions,
No,
Councillor Ring?
I'll let Mr. Gurney deal with them in revising the document. There's not a lot of work involved in it, but I think it needs to be done.
Okay, thank you. Any further commentary or debate? Councillor Fredericks, you've got your hand up then, Councillor Marnie. Yeah.
Through you, Mayor, to Ms Browning, how much of an impact has the decrease in the FAG, the financial assistant grant, had in our financials for the last year, from the 1% down to the 0.55%?
Director Browning?
Through you, Mayor Coleman. That's happened over a number of years, and it certainly had an impact over the long term. I couldn't quantify that in a specific number tonight, but it has affected councils, certainly across New South Wales in terms of the allocation. Also contributing to that is the methodology in terms of how they allocate that, just because of the weighting on population. So that obviously disadvantages regional councils more so than heavily populated metropolitan councils and the larger regional centres. So it does certainly put us behind. Those would have been, I'm going to assume that that continuation of the low rate for the financial assistance grant would have been modelled into the long-term plan at the time that the SRV was developed also.
Councillor Fredericks, any further? No, you're right. Councillor Marnie?
It's just highlighted in the report, so I have to ask this question. Browns Gap, completion date, approximate even.
Director Edgecombe? Browns Gap.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. Browns Gap Road, just looking at the completion date for that, if there's a revised date for that.
Through you, Mayor Coleman. So the date for expected completion, and any number of things can go wrong on projects of this scale, but the date of expected completion is the end of this calendar year.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Statham?
Yes, Mayor Coleman. Just speaking also about the financial assistance for our committees and volunteers. Is there any money at all for volunteers now to be able to receive to keep things going in their different programs that they have for their different groups, or is that financial assistance now ceased and it's been gone? Because if it has been gone, I think that's one thing we desperately need to lobby for, because we have got a lot of committees that rely on that money every year and from year to year, and some of them are giving out money every year anyway, but the people that put in for that money is small voluntary organisations that they cannot continue to be without that extra little bit of money. So I'd like to know the length of the period that you think we won't be receiving that money.
Sure. Director Elwood?
Through yourself, Mayor. This financial year, the former process of actually calling for grants and 2 rounds per year has not been undertaken due to the low available level of funds within the financial assistance program. And we currently have a proposal which will be coming to the Finance Committee for how considerations of financial assistance grants program going into future years should be managed. One of the constraints we have had is the high level of over subscription for the grants process, and how best to actually allocate that, and given the limited criteria around what would be considered in determining a grant, whether we can have more appropriate criteria, because it was very broad, which was raising a number of issues. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elwood.
Thank you, Councillor Statham. Is there any further on this matter? Councillor Tysus, write a reply if you like.
No, thank you, Mayor.
I'll put that to you. All those in favour? All those against, declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. We move to 111, which is one of your late reports, which is the tender evaluation report for pavement rehabilitation and sealing, Magpie Hollow Road. We've got a recommendation here. Councillors, what's the will of the council?
I'll move it.
Happy to move, Councillor Ring.
I'll move it. I'm not necessarily happy, but I'll move it.
Okay. Councillor Ring is moving it. Whether he's happy or not is a different thing. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Goodwin? Yes? Thank you. Councillor Ring.
I do have one question for you to the administration. On page 4, there's discussion about a shortfall of $236,499 and recommended further negotiation with DRFA. How does this impact on the overall cost and delivery of this program?
Director Edgecombe?
So while it impacts the cost of the project, it won't impact the overall program. We will make savings elsewhere in the program, and we'll reconsider the scope of this project as aligned with the proposed recommendation to try and bring the project to bear within budget. We're also engaging with the DRFA and Transport for New South Wales and New South Wales RA to adjust the figures of approval given to council, because the cause of the projected overspend is the amount of time between the initial assessments, which formed part of the DRFA application, and the determination of those funds, and that timeline is being included in the advocacy that's being sent to the minister in the next in the next week or so. So, long story short, it won't affect the overall program, because we will find savings elsewhere that will accommodate for this projected overspend.
Councillor Ring?
No, I'm happy with the tender report, thank you, and the answer.
Councillor Goodwin?
No, nothing.
You're right. Okay. Any further commentary on this matter? No? Happy to do Councillor Ring, you don't need to do a right reply. All right, so I'll put that to you. All those in favour? All those against? Declare that carried. Okay, so now we go to 112, which is another late report, which is the tender evaluation pavement rehabilitation ceiling and Lowther sliding road. We have a recommendation here. What's the will of the council? Councillor Marnie's happy to move it. Anybody like to second this?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Statham. Councillor Marnie? Councillor Marnie, we can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Apologies. With the late reports, it does make it a little bit more challenging for councillors to provide an informed commentary on things. I again understand that there's programming pressures. Again, we come back with a situation where I need to be clear that we've had multiple applicants, so we're going back to the successful, and I'll need to ask a question why the contractor was selected.
Director Edgecombe?
So you're asking generally as to why?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
right. So in accordance with our tendering policy, we used and the tender evaluation plan, we evaluated the tender based on 5 criteria. The first being value for money, which was 40% of the weighting.
Yep.
The second was methodology. Third was capacity, the ability to deliver it with the resources the company has at its disposal. Capability, which is basically performance on past projects, whether they're council projects or otherwise. And in accordance with council policy as well, a local preference allocation as well, to give some minor preference to our local community. Again, similar to the other projects, each of those 5 criteria were assessed by both the project officer, the one who delivers the project, but also the transport manager, the team leader for all projects, and a representative of Shepherd Services being an expert advisor as well. Vanessa also acted as the probity advisor for this tender.
You happy with that,
Okay.
Councillor Marnie?
Yeah, no, I understand what's been said, but okay. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Statham?
I do agree with Councillor Marnie. You know, we need a lot of time. There's a lot of money involved, and they're very important projects. And a lot of people wouldn't know where Lowther Siding Road is, but it's at Lowther, out near Hampton. I do realise, again, that the pavement at the moment, the condition of it is not good. I think the annual maintenance costs have been quite considerable, so it would be better to get something more serviceable done that will be able to last longer than keep patching on patching. So I think it's great news for out there, and I think the people out there have been quite concerned about the road, so I think it's they'll be very happy tonight to hear that this will go through.
Thank you, Councillor Statham. Do I have any further?
Yeah.
Councillor Ring?
It's good that we had a number of tenderers. What does concern me when you look at the tender evaluation report, and I'm glad we have a couple of independent people on it, is 2 of the tenders are very good, financially favourable for us. I can only assume that on past records they've done good work, but then they're significantly cheaper than all the others, and that does concern me. And I don't know if there's an answer for it. It's something that I would like to explore and discuss further, the tendering process in the finance and in the infrastructure committees. I'm not implying impropriety or anything like that, but it just concerns me why a couple of very much within spitting distance of each other, and then a long way away from the next more competitive. That does concern me.
Director Edgecombe, can you please respond to Councillor Ring's concerns?
We can definitely work this through at an infrastructure or finance committee, because I agree with you. But I spoke with Director Browning about this. We both share some concerns, but we agreed that we would let these projects be delivered, and we would both monitor them closely. And if required, we would introduce a change to our policy to potentially consider a standard deviation. Basically, if projects deviate from the average value by more than 40%, for example, they can be specifically excluded for that reason. So there are controls you can put in around these, and we will, depending on the outcome of these projects.
No, I do appreciate that, and I will raise them moving forward to finance and infrastructure. I think it's something we do need to consider. I'm all for the contracting locally, but we can't have any questions. I have had issues raised with me by people in the industry, but we just need to work through it.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Is there any further commentary on this matter before I hand it back to Councillor Money? Just before I do, Councillor Goodwin, did you? No, you're right. Okay. Before I do hand it to Councillor Money, I note in regards to this item on page 9 of this item that it states under consultation and communication, residents in the local area have been advised of the project, and further direct communication will be issued once the tender is awarded. But when you have a look at 1.8 in regards to Portland Sunny Corner Road, which has just been supported, under consultation and communication, it states local residents will be notified of works via a letterbox drop, whilst council will undertake a media release notifying the broader community of the schedule of works. Why is the consultation and communication different in regards to this matter?
Thanks, Mayor Coleman. It's a good point, well made. I'll look into it tomorrow. I'll get a response to you, but we'll make sure that they're more consistent moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's important that consultation and communication is consistent across the board when it comes to tenders and roads.
May I just inform Mr. Edgecombe that we don't have any letterboxes added on Sunny Corner
So
Road.
that's probably one of the reasons. Oh, so is that?
They said that they're going to do a letterbox drop.
But we can do PO boxes though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, so we can do PO boxes, which is the same thing. All right, that's great. Councillor Marnie? Right reply? No, okay. I'll put that all in favour. All those against? Declare that carried. Thank you. We're now up to the late report 113, which is in front of the councillors. The report is draft uninformed and unmaintained roads policy. It's a draft policy. There's a recommendation here by the
Mayor,
administration.
could I move a recommendation that due to the late report that this go back to the next council meeting? I need to, and I think there were some comments in regards to this is an issue that needs to be thought through.
Yep, so Councillor Tysus is moving a deferral to the next council meeting, and Councillor Statham, well, that's a procedural motion, so I don't, if it's deferral, so yeah, I don't need a seconder for that, it's procedural. So Councillor Tysus is moving deferral to the next council meeting. Do we have any opposition to that? No? I'll put that, all those in favour? Yep. All those against, declare that carried. That's moved to the next council meeting by Councillor Tysus. Okay. We come down to questions with notice. Now, Councillor Tysus, you have one in regards to workers' compensation matters.
Mayor Coleman, you've completely skipped. There's still 2.2 and a
sorry.
couple others.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, so we've done 2.1 and 2.3 and 2.4 and 2.5 by exception, but we have missed 2.2, and thank you, Councillor Fredericks, for bringing that to my attention. So we'll go to page 40. Okay, so you have that in front of you, councillors. What would you like to do? What's the will of the council? Are you happy to move the recommendation and then ask questions? Who would like to do that?
I'll move that.
Thank you, Councillor Statham. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Goodwin. Thank you. Councillor Statham.
I think just reading the recommendation that Council note the minutes of the extraordinary meeting of Finance Committee meeting held on the 8th of December 2025 and the business paper recommend to be endorsed by the committee.
Thank you, Councillor Statham. Would you like to speak any further to that, or you're right? Councillor Goodwin.
No, I'm happy with the administration recommendation.
Thank you. Councillors, do we only have any comments or queries regarding these minutes? I only have one, if I could, through to the Director of Finance, because I actually was away due to work purposes. I note that Centennial, in regards to their rates, has been mentioned in this report. I think it's important that we just touch on that. And I need to understand how the valuer general and IPART relates to not only this company but the wider community. Could you please go into some detail regarding that, Director Browning?
Certainly. So in the Valuer General issues land valuations across all properties in New South Wales. At times they may change valuations for properties or the valuation methodology, which is what the case was in this particular instance. And that resulted in increased rates. So rates work off the unimproved land value, which is issued, or in this case, mineral rights valuations attributable to this property. That's resulted in an increase in rates in this year, hence the presentation from Centennial Coal to the Finance Committee. IPART issue what the rates peg is for each year, and then we determine the proportionate from each rating category that goes up in the operational plan each year for all rateable properties across the local government area. So in this instance, with that change in valuation methodology, with the rate structure that was already on exhibition at the time, the increase did occur, and that was the basis of their presentation. But it's important to note that this was a VG determination. Council had no involvement in that change in valuation methodology.
If I could ask a follow-up question, the Valuator General, that's actually a state government agency?
Correct.
And IPART is also regulated by the state government?
It's a body formed from the state.
So the state government has carriage of both the Valuer General and IPART.
And to lead further onto that, the constraints that are applied for rating structures are endorsed by councils.
Thank you. Is there any further questions in regards to this report? Councillor Statham, would you like to respond or write a reply or anything?
No, it's fine.
Thank you. I'll put that to you. All those in favour? All those against? Declare that carried. Can someone please get the other councillors? We'll move on to questions with notice, which is question or notice, Councillor Tice's workers' compensation matters on page 46. I note that your questions have been responded to, Councillor Tice's. Would you like any further questions in regards to
No,
that?
I've got no further questions now.
Thank you. I know.
My apologies. I'm not sure why I'm doing that tonight, but is it permissible to ask a question on a question
On notice?
with notice,
Yes.
understanding that the answer may not be readily available?
Right, yeah, you can ask a question. Yeah.
Could I ask for you, Mayor, to Mrs. Browning, are we getting any indication from our mutual insurer or the alternate mutual insurer about what's happening across the insurance industry in relation to psychosocial hazards and other elements? Are we seeing replicated increases across other either other industries or other council areas?
Director Browning?
Through you, Mayor Coleman. Certainly that is the case, that we're receiving advice. There's also information that comes from LG New South Wales and several other articles that we receive over time. It's been quite a subject of the media as well, with the legislative changes that have come through recently to try and address the pressures coming from psychosocial claims. There was changes in the legislation several years ago that actually meant that the requirements and the costs associated with management of psychosocial claims were a lot higher. And they're trying to remedy that, and they're in progress of doing that at present. But certainly what's coming through in terms of our insurer is that it's a common theme across not just local government but other industries as well.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Marnie, you're right. Councillor Frederick, do you have a question in regards to Councillor Tice's question?
I'm not sure if it can be answered, but I'm going to ask it anyway. With the rise in the psychosocial stuff that we are seeing, is it restricted to one department, multiple departments? Is it mainly outside workers, inside workers? Like, is there any kind of pattern that we can look at to try and improve?
Director Browning?
Through you, Mayor Coleman, it's across the board. There's no one major cause, no one major department. And there's various different contributing factors. So we do manage that through the Human Resources Department. So we analyse that, we develop return to work plans, we look for root causes to be able to address any issues. So each one's quite unique, and there doesn't seem to be any specific commonality at this stage.
If there's no further questions.
No, I've got a question for you, Mayor Coleman, to Councillor Tice's. I'm just curious. I mean, this was tabled at the 1st of December, yet he didn't. That Councillor Tice's raised no issues with it. I'm just curious as to why.
You're not obligated to answer Councillor Tice's if you don't wish.
It was already answered.
Okay.
The management put a comment on it. I was happy with that.
So we'll leave it at that. Thank you. Okay, moving on to question we've noticed. 3.2, Councillor Frederick's residential vacancy conversion and uninhabitable dwelling within the Lithgow local general area. Your questions have been responded to. Do you have any questions regarding your questions?
I would just like to thank Mr. Elwood for the very detailed answers that he has provided. It's good for the community. It's transparent. They now have all that information in one spot where they can easily access it. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further questions in regards to Councillor Frederick's question? No? Okay, thank you. We'll move on. Notice of motion. Councillor Frederick is flood warning services, federal cost shifting to local government. Councillor, if you'd like to read out your recommendation, do you have a seconder? Councillor Tice is seconding it. All right, if you'd like to read your recommendation and then speak to it. That'll be lovely. Thank you.
Okay, the recommendation is that Council 1 write to the Prime Minister, the Honourable Anthony Albanese MP, and the relevant federal member ministers, expressing Council's strong opposition to the cost shifting of flood warning services onto local government. 2, write to the federal member for Clare, Mr. Andrew G. MP, outlining Council's opposition to these changes and requesting his advocacy on behalf of the Lithgow community. 3, lodge notices of motion at all relevant local government conferences, calling for collective opposition to these changes and advocating for the reversal of this legislation. 4, publicly exhibit the full financial impact of these legislative changes on Lithgow City Council, including all initial and ongoing costs associated with subscription to flood warning services. And 5, seek formal clarification from the federal government as to whether other critical emergency warning services, including bushfire warnings, severe storm warnings, and heatwave alerts, are intended to be transitioned to paid services in the future. All right, so I would also quickly like to add 6 and 7, which is from the comments of Mr. Edgecombe. 6 would be immediately reach out to the Central New South Wales Joint Organisation and request that our JO reach out to all other JOs to form an inter-regional advocacy group to support council's initiatives. This could occur through Joint Organisation's Regional Resilience Group, of which our council is chair. And 8, engage with the state emergency services, including their minister, the Honourable Jihad Dib, seeking feedback on matters above and how they propose to mitigate the undeniable impacts on disaster response. If there are any concerns about cybersecurity, a transition to different software would be supported so long as there's no cost shifting or reduction in services. Now, when I first read about that, the cost shifting from it being a free service to specifically Queensland councils having to cop the financial impact of having to subscribe to an overseas company for flood warnings, a lot of red flags dance past. These are critical. A minute between these flood warnings can be the difference between a suburb surviving and a suburb disappearing. So it is very concerning. And the fact that it is yet another service that is being pushed onto councils, because even though New South Wales councils are not responsible, SES is. SES won't be paying for it because it's mainly a volunteer organisation funded by a state government. So I can see that funding being shifted onto us. And it will be every LGA, because every LGA floods at some point. We've seen Farmers Creek rise to the point where things have to be closed and stuff like that. Things like this, flood warnings, should be free. They are a life-saving part of our system. Having to subscribe to an overseas company, is that keeping money in Australia? And is it really keeping Australians safe? Like, this is absolutely ridiculous. And it's why I brought it up, that it needs to go to every local government conference. Every single council in Australia needs to stand up with each other and go, this is completely unacceptable. We're already struggling. You keep reducing the FAG on us all, and you expect us to cut more costs because you don't want to pay it anymore. You don't want the responsibility of it. So I am asking our council to back me in what I have recommended, and let's get this ball rolling. If we've got to lead it, let's lead it.
Councillor Tysus.
Thank you, Mayor. I congratulate Councillor Fredericks and Mr. Edgecombe on his comments as well. But to putting this together, I think it's appropriate that clearly prevention is better than the cure. We don't need to wait for the cost of floods and the cost of bushfires and everything else that happens, and then it ends up into multi-million dollars or billions of dollars with the what we have in Australia for the sake of doing this to some overseas company. I mean, the government got rid of TikTok in regards to off all government, state and federal government phones and laptops and all that sort of thing, and here we are putting flood warnings and everything from overseas companies as well. They might as well get TikTok to do it for them. So I congratulate them both on that report. Thank you.
Any further commentary on this matter? Councillor Ring?
Yes, I have a question for you, Mayor, through to Councillor Fredericks.
Yep.
And I appreciate she doesn't have to answer, but she makes the claim on page 51 of 57 that the Federal Albanese Labor government has implemented, or is in the process of implementing, the legislative changes that remove local government access to free flood warning, instead requiring councils to subscribe to a paid overseas-based service in order to receive flood warnings. Could I ask where the sources for that, where it's come?
Yeah, numerous Senate and lower house members in federal parliament. They've all been posting about it repeatedly online. They have spoken about it in interviews and all. So that's where my sources came, and I also did a little bit of digging to see that legislation.
Thank you for that. I appreciate the answer. I found nothing online to indicate there's legislation coming through and it's consistent with what management has actually added. This is not a federal Labor initiative. This is the Bureau of Meteorology, who are getting rid of a 30-year-old software package which no longer meets cybersecurity threats and looking at getting in a more modern program. There is no cost shifting to New South Wales councils. It is already a cost on Queensland councils. They're already legally responsible for it. My understanding is, from the research I've done, is that the information will be available publicly for councils, for the general public. And in New South Wales, flood warnings are legislative responsibility of the SES, and we need to support them in being able to obtain information at 5-minute intervals, which they moved the NOM to go to the National Assembly. In their current form, I can't support points 1, 4 and 5 as they do not accurately reflect the current situation. Labor government is not creating the problem, it's the Bureau of Meteorology. The issue of concern is increased time of reporting from 5 to 15 minutes. There is no financial cost shifting to our council. New South Wales manages bushfire warnings. There is no evidence to provide support that indicates that any other services, particularly from BOM, are being removed. This is a software package that is being purchased to be used by government departments. It's not being contracted out to a foreign company to do the flood monitoring. As it stands, with those points, I can't support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Any further commentary on this matter? Councillor Statham?
Yes, I read through this and think another cost shifting. It appears that cost shifting now has become damaging to not only parts of our state but more regional areas. And the sooner the governments, both levels of government, realise that our regional area is the food bowl for all of New South Wales, and in particular, I think that it's a disgrace that we cannot supply. I know it's quite a different subject, but we cannot supply money because of shift costing to our volunteer people in our area. It is a disgrace, and I do agree with Councillor Fredericks. When I was mayor, there was 2 massive fires. There's been massive floods. There's been all of those which I encountered, and we cannot leave a space of time before people know about what the situation is when it's a life-saving, could be a life-threatening situation.
Any further commentary? Councillor Marnie?
I've just got a point of clarification. I'm happy who provides the response to it. My understanding is that the BOM is undertaking a $236 million, and I'm seeing some commentaries from management, which I need to understand as well. I'll come to those in a minute. But out of the 8,000 data points in flood systems, a third of those are owned by the BOM. Now they're in the process over next year of purchasing 1,600 and upgrading them. And they're particularly targeting those high-risk flood subcatchments. I just want to understand where this fits into the debate, because it's not provided, that element. I thought there was an element of overreach when we were suggesting or implying that government would take away heatwave warnings or take away or charge for bushfire warnings. I'm not convinced that that has arrived in front of us through any legislative process. I have no problem with ensuring that current service levels are maintained, and I thank Councillor Fredericks for bringing that forward. But I think there's a bit of overreach in the commentary about that there would be any level of government believes that it would be in their interests, morally, ethically or financially, to not provide heat wave warnings. All through this recent heat wave across Australia, I would suggest there's many, if not more, people dying from heat waves and bushfires. People lose a huge amount of property in bushfires, but heat waves are an insidious killer of vulnerable populations. So I'm afraid I don't see that as an evidential statement. I've noted what Councillor Ring has said. I have no problem with us sending forward a statement saying that the 5-minute intervals need to be maintained. That like New South Wales local government sector as a whole are not willing to bear the costs. If that's what's being proposed, as I understand the SES and through their Hazard DME app, provide those alerts. I may misunderstand that, but that's my understanding. So there's a couple of points in there that I have some issues with. I don't think there's an adequate representation of what is happening with the flood data points across the nation, and also the categorisation of high-risk flood issues. I think that Lithgow City Council, and I've sat on the flood risk mitigation group prior to myself going on the council for some time, and have taken an active interest. But the majority of our problems with flooding, and I applaud the earlier councils that have dealt with the flood mitigation work in the Hermitage area, the majority of our flooded people and the people that have been identified as flooding is for infrastructure, civil infrastructure that's not fit for purpose. Now, we're finding when we're going out to developments that a consideration is now coming forward of the impact of stormwater overland flooding. So I think it's a many-faceted problem. But I just felt there was an extrapolation of the issue with this into other warning services, which I would be extremely surprised that any government would consider limiting the access to heatwave, bushfires, and storm alerts. So look, I concur that the matter should be sent to the National Assembly, which is the collective of all local government across the nation. I agree with Councillor Fredericks that the 5-minute notifications need to be supported in future systems. There's some points in there I'm not clear that as Councillor Ring has stated, that they're actually what is happening at the moment. So it may be the opinion of various political members or opposition or whoever that this is the situation, but I'm not seeing a complete response to that in the management comment in regard to that, what's happening with the flood data and flood warning points across the state.
Any further commentary on this matter? Councillor Evangelidis?
Yeah, I think we need to be across this a lot more. It's very hard to push a message through when it hasn't come out yet, or it's not official yet. There are areas in New South Wales that are affected a lot more by flooding than us, and I imagine that they'd be the first ones to air their concerns about anything that degraded any form of a less, quick. Maybe this new system is great. Maybe it's quicker. Maybe there's got to be a reason why they're going to it. Like I said, we're very let down low on the list as far as flooding. I mean, flooding has absolutely destroyed communities in New South Wales. So I say let's wait until we know everything about it. And then if we want to join the bandwagon of all the other councils that are disagreeing with it, then we should. But at the moment, there's got to be reasons why they're doing it.
Mayor, could I just state that I have a matter arising or foreshadowed motion depending on how this pans out?
So it's either a matter arising or foreshadowed.
Yeah, depending on how this goes. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll let you make the call.
Any further commentary on this matter? I hand back to Rada reply. Look, I don't have any problems with this recommendation. Like, basic let's go through it one by one. Write to the Prime Minister, the Honourable Anthony Albanese, the relevant federal Labor ministers, expressing Council's strong opposition to cost shifting of flood warning service onto local government. If we write to the Prime Minister, he's then going to refer it to the relevant departments or the minister, and we will have a response in regards to that. So it could be, where it's an investigation sort of process. So he either responds, one way or the other. Write to the federal member for Clare, Mr. Andrew G, outlining Council's opposition to these changes and requesting advocacy on behalf of Lithgow Council, Lithgow community. That gives him an opportunity to speak in Parliament. He can speak on it in Parliament. He's aware of the issue. He can put it forward that way. And it puts it on his radar. I think number 3 is very, very important. Lodge notice of motion with all relevant local government conferences. The local government board will determine whether or not it goes through to conference or not, but it puts it on their radar. Publicly exhibit the full financial impacts of these legislation changes on Lithgow City Council, including all initial and ongoing costs associated with subscription to flood warning services. Are you saying that Director Browning needs to do that work? Because that's a lot of work, Councillor Frederick, if I can ask you a question on that.
Only if our councils start being hit with those financial costs.
Okay, so that's not immediate.
Not yet. As I said, I highly doubt the SES will be paying for this subscription. So that shift in costing will have to go somewhere. And unfortunately, most of that always ends up on local government.
Director Browning, how would that work? How would that work in regards to that particular item?
Through you, Mayor Colin, that might be incredibly hard to actually track through, because generally with SES, it's a levy that's imposed. So what would likely to happen if the costs associated with, if SES do pay them, they defray it through the levy, the emergency services levy. So we potentially may never actually find out if they pay for it, because we don't get a breakdown in terms of what makes up the levy. It's usually just a proportion of the SES costs. And some of it's also recovered through insurance policies, and a direct contribution from state government. So, we may never get the signal unless SES decides to lobby and advocate for us to be able to address it.
Okay. And then number 5, seek formal clarification from the federal government as to whether other critical emergency warning services, including bushfire warnings, severe storm warnings and heat wave alerts, are intended to be transitioned to paid service in the future. So you're seeking formal clarification from the federal government. I'm assuming in a letter, but you're not directing where the letter needs to go. I'm assuming then we just write to the Prime Minister.
Yeah. Number 5 is specifically just because I never thought that we'd end up having to have any area have to pay for a subscription to flood warnings. Do I trust that this won't be an eventuation? No.
Yeah, I understand
and this is just precautionary, so that way we can get out in front and seek formal clarification from whatever part of the government.
So you're happy for the administration to take carriage of that?
Yes.
Right. Okay, that's what I'm trying to get at. All right, and then
Mayor, if I could just suggest that
I'm not fit. Councillor
1 and 5 go to, as a procedure motion. 1 and 5 go together.
1 and 5 go together.
Number
1 and 5 go
follows
together. Yeah. Okay. Righto. If you're happy with that, Councillor Frederickson, right? And then you've got the recommended Central West Joint Organisation, which has been recommended by Director Edgecombe, and then State Emergency Services. Okay. Look, I don't actually have an issue here because it's more of fact finding. That's how I see this recommendation. It's more about fact finding. Let's find out whether this is actually happening or not. I mean, the Prime Minister is just going to refer it down to the relevant agencies, and we'll just get a letter from one of the agencies. So, and then, as I said, Andrew G can just speak about it in Parliament. Gives him an option there. We can then discuss at a local government conference if it gets through the board, because they make a determination. I think the most important part of this motion is actually the Central West Joint Organisation, which has a lot of weight and carries, and we can do stuff there. And definitely the state emergency services. That's really important. So I have no issue with this. I'll hand back to you for right of reply, Councillor Fredericks.
Well, honestly, just put it.
Okay. All right. I'll put that. All those in favour? All those against? Okay. I'm going to call a division. So I'm going to, if that's okay. Yeah, I'll call a division. All those in favour, please raise your hand. All those against? Okay. That's carried. So the division was all those in favour, just put your hand up in favour of, which is Councillor Smith, Councillor Fredericks, Councillor Tyson, Councillor Statham, Councillor Coleman. All those against was Councillor Goodwin, Councillor Ring and Councillor Money. Great. The matter was carried. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Councillor Fredericks, for that. We move on to item 5, which is business of great urgency.
Sorry, Mayor, I've got a matter arising.
Oh, sorry, matter arising or foreshadow, yes.
Basically, I have a motion that the Infrastructure Committee review Council's flood management practices, inclusive of lowering Farmers Creek Dam during high rainfall periods to minimise the adverse impacts of flooding within Lithgow.
So that's your matter arising?
Yep.
I'm happy to second that. You would like to speak to that?
I just think we need to discuss this as it flows on from the previous NOM. Catastrophic flooding for a failure of the dam would kill people in Lithgow. I mean, that's when we're talking about that sort of scenario. But we do have the capacity to release water when we know we've got a wet season, we've got lots of rain coming. If the rain doesn't come, we've got the backup with the Clarence Water Transfer. I think it's really important that we look at how we manage this issue moving forward.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. That's why I seconded. Is there any debate regarding this matter arising? Councillor Money?
Just to support that proposition, if we can create freeboard in our water storage systems, particularly, and we've only got one perched above our urban landscape, it provides us with a flood mitigation option that we're not constructing bigger channels down below to deal with. And it would come off the back of predicted high level rains. So I actually am very supportive of this. I think it's something that should be used across storage systems where they're sitting, and that was part of the Brisbane experience. Their overruns of their storage dams caused major flooding in the Brisbane system. So those big river systems, certainly it's part of the consideration, but it can be done at our scale as well. So I think it's a matter worth pursuing.
Thank you, Councillor Money. Any further commentary? Councillor Ring, would you like a right of reply?
No, just put it, please, ma'am.
Okay, I'll put that to you. All those in favour? All those against? Declare that carried. Thank you. We move to business of great urgency.
I have one, Mayor.
Councillor Tyson?
Thank you, Mayor. As you'd be aware, the Wild Food Festival is on Saturday, the 21st of this coming month, before our next meeting. I was just wondering whether, given the problems that we had with the Halloween last year, whether the council has a traffic management plan for this festival, and what portion of Main Street is going to be closed.
So that's not actually a business of great urgency. The code's changed now, Councillor Tyson, unfortunately. The business of great urgency is about something that is actually quite urgent and can't be dealt with until the next meeting, though the director can undertake it and take it as a memo and bring it back to you.
I'd suggest that it is urgent because in regards to traffic.
Okay, so you're moving...
So I'm putting that it is urgent, and I ask the council to consider it urgent.
Okay, so I'll put that to you. It has to go to council, it doesn't go to me now. So I'm putting forward what Councillor Tyson has said, that it's a matter of great urgency in regards to the traffic plan, regards to wild food. Are you happy to support that it's business of great urgency? So I need a raiser of hands. So that's been carried. So it's now been declared carried. So what would you like to move, Councillor Tyson?
Mayor, I just want an explanation that there is a traffic plan in place for this particular event that solves the problems of Halloween last year, where there was a traffic plan, and then it had to be adjusted on the evening, and there were people that nearly got hit by cars because they're going in a different direction.
So what are you moving, or is it a question, Councillor Tyson?
It's a question: is what is the process? Is there a management plan, and does it cover the whole of Main Street, and will it avoid the problems that we had at Halloween?
Yep.
Through yourself, Mayor. Yes, there is a traffic guidance plan, traffic management plan in place for Wild Foods Festival. The closure is from the lower end of Main Street, so around Short Street, up to Esbank Street. So that block is closed, which includes a focus around Crown Street Plaza as well. That plan is in play and will operate for the majority of the afternoon of Saturday the 21st, with the closure up until around about midnight on the Saturday 21st.
Okay. If there's no further business of great urgency, I need a motion to move into closed council, but I need to first ask the public if they would like to leave. I'm sorry, but that's okay. I need a councillor to move us into closed council. Councillor Marnie's moving that way. Councillor Goodwin's moving that. Oh, Councillor Goodwin, I think, put his hand up first. If there's no opposition to that, no, that's carried. We now move into closed council. Thank you. Thank you and welcome back to Council. I'll hand over to the General Manager who will read out what Council has resolved in closed council.
Thank you, Mayor. On the confidential item, Walgam Road variation request, it was resolved that Council varied the existing contract with GHD for the amount of $586,564 excluding GST to undertake works as agreed with New South Wales Reconstruction Authority and Transport for New South Wales to develop strategic design alignment options along the existing Walgam Road as proposed in the GHD Revision 5 submission. Point 2, endorse an amount of 15% of the GHD amount, being $87,987.60 excluding GST, to be allocated for contingency due to the pricing structure for this engagement, including a time plus disbursements component. The contract includes hourly rates for each of the roles, with payment made based on actual hours worked. And point 3, note that the proposed works are eligible for reimbursement within the total upper limited grant for the project. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. I now declare the meeting closed. It's 8:55. Thank you.